to put that up here?
No, I'm good, I
No?
got the mic.
Okay. All right.
I didn't see it down there.
Okay, media's ready? Okay, Detective Lieutenant Richard LeBrun, Nassau County Police Department. We scheduled this press conference to provide further details of a police-involved shooting last night in Massapequa. Present are Nassau County Police Commissioner Patrick Ryder and the commanding officer of the Homicide Squad, Detective Captain Stephen Fitzpatrick. At this time, I'd like to introduce our Commissioner, Patrick Ryder. Sir?
So good afternoon. We're going to go over details of an officer-involved shooting last night and break it down. Sometime last night, I received a phone call that there was an officer-involved shooting in the Massapequa area. I immediately contacted the county executive to fill him in on what we know so far, and of course, well wishes was sent right away. Last night at about 8:30, 7 precinct officers received a call for a male threatening to kill himself on Stone Boulevard residence in Massapequa. Upon arrival at that scene, a young man, David Clements, age 19, was standing in front of the house with 3 guns in his hand, stating he wanted to kill himself. He was threatening to kill himself several times. The officers gave him directions to drop the weapon, drop the weapon. At some point, that individual ran back into his house for a second, turned around, came out with a loaded 9mm handgun with a very bright flashlight on it. He pointed it at the officers saying, "Tell my mother I love him," and then he ran towards the officers. One of our very experienced 7-year veterans and works in the elite unit of the emergency service unit. As that individual ran towards him, he fired at the individual, striking him. And then sometime later, we had the ambulance come down the street, administer first aid, but the man had died and transpired. So the officers did an outstanding job in maintaining their discipline, and we stand very strong with them about what they did last night. But unfortunately, somebody lost a life. And that life obviously it comes with concern and care for the individual and their family. We stand with our officers. They did an outstanding job. This individual had a history of mental illness. He had access to get a gun, which was still going on, still a current investigation. And right now, our homicide unit will work along with the Attorney General's office to make that final determination. But at this time, the officers involved shooting was by the book shooting. Any questions?
How many firearms did y'all recover?
So he had 3 guns when he first showed up at the officers, and he was pointing them to his head, stating that, "Tell my mother I love her, I don't want to live." 2 of those guns ended up being BB guns, which we recovered later. But the gun that he confronted the officers and ran down the driveway with them was a loaded 9mm.
Any other weapons found inside the home?
There was no other weapons found inside the home. The mother was very, obviously very upset, but also very cooperative, and was actually, her and the uncle said they were asking about the officers. They were concerned about the condition of the officers to make sure that they were all right. Our officers, we did call out our peer support group last night, and they will get all the treatment that they need before they come back to work.
The part of the driveway where he comes back at the officers, the gun is pointed right at them, and he's saying what?
He comes running out of the house at one point. This is the second time. He'd already been out on the front. He now comes out with the gun, running at the officers with this light on, charging at the officer, and the officer fired.
And is that does he repeat again, "Tell my mother," whatever?
He said that at the earlier time when he first came out of the house.
Is this what you consider suicide by cop?
It actually fits the description of suicide by cop. The gentleman obviously had some cognitive issues, has a history. He stated that he wanted to die. He also said, "Tell my mother I love her." And then he ran towards the officers. You know, it's a tragic situation for the family. The mother and again, the uncle that was at the scene were very helpful with us and concerned. But it's also very tragic for that officer. That officer, nobody signs up to take a life. That's not what we do a job for. We do it to protect and serve so that these things don't happen. And sometimes we have to do our job. And last night, the officer did his job. The rest of the officers maintained absolute professional restraint in that they did not also fire. They all took their covered positions, and the ESU officer, which is that elite unit that trains for these type of situations, handled that shooting.
Were any body cams,
There is body camera on all the officers. All of the videos are being reviewed. They will also be turned over to the Attorney General's office in the investigation.
anything be released on that?
No, we will not be releasing any of that.
Does he have any previous run-ins with police here in Nashville?
He's had a couple arrests early on. He's also had some mental health issues. But again, you know, it's a mental health struggle that he had, and it came at the officer with the loaded gun, and we had to do what we had to do.
One ESU officer that fired one shot?
It was only one officer that was involved in the shooting. The amount of shots that were fired, we don't know at this time. Continued investigation.
How long was the whole interaction?
Less than 15 minutes.
Yeah, less than 15 minutes.
And other than the mother and uncle, any other family members, anyone else home?
There was nobody else there at that time.
Where was he shot, sir?
Excuse me?
Where was he shot? Where was?
We can't discuss that. It's still ongoing examination by the medical examiner.
Who called police, sir?
It was called by a neighbor. He started to run around to a neighbor's. He showed the neighbor the weapon that he had, and he stated to the neighbor that he was going to kill himself. So it was clear that the individual did not want to live at that point. He stated it numerous times, and then he decided to run at the police officers with a loaded gun.
So when the officers receive the 911 call, the elite unit comes, they know that has a history of mental...
We know that we have a man with a gun that's claiming to kill himself. That's how the 911 call came over.
Okay, thank you.
I saw two Steve back there. I didn't know it was you.